Okay, let me get this straight now. A chili cook-off, it's about 85 out there, and I'm standing in front of a fireplace.
Do you feel the heat?
Oh, well, they're going to feel the heat in Washington in this election. Let me tell you. I want to get this straight. Was that child saying my name?
Yes.
This is why we can win. I mean, that's what we need. When we get the children to start saying the names of the candidates, you know, we're on our way. I want to thank all of you in Lane County for this welcome, to let you know what a privilege it is to work with your member of Congress, Pete DeFazio, who's one of the most progressive members in the United States. And Pete and I worked together in challenging the administration's march towards war in Iraq. We knew, as all of you knew, over the last year and a half, that this administration was trumping up a case for war against Iraq. Yeah. We knew this. You knew this in Lane County. Unfortunately, the American people didn't realize that as this country was swept up into war. We have to understand that we're at a very critical moment in American history, and this is where all of you come in as active Democrats, as progressives, as individuals who have the reputation for helping to set a tone for politics in this state and throughout the Northwest. We must remember that across this country has dropped a kind of a pall of fear. And it's affected our national dialogue. It's affected our sense of who we are as Americans. I mean, how many of us have had the experience in the last year or so where we said to ourselves or to others, I can't believe this is happening in America. Yeah. So each one of us has had this sense of something fundamental being eroded, even lost, that connects to who we are as citizens of the United States. And at the same time that we feel that, we also feel a yearning to reconnect with the higher aspirations of what it does mean to be an American, the aspirations of America in the world, a place of a benign presence, of felicity for this country in the world. And so as the person who led the effort in the House of Representatives in challenging the Bush administration's march towards war, I say, as the candidate for president, that this is the moment when America needs to reach out and to re-engage with the world community. We need to rejoin the world as a nation. And as we step forward to re-engage with the world, as we do that, we begin to reconnect with the world in a profound way. My presidency will be one of bringing in holistic vision to the White House, one which sees the world as interconnected and interdependent. It is so important that we understand that the worldview of a president has everything to do with the outcome for this country. A presidency which is guided by a principle of unilateralism, by a principle of first strike, by a principle of preemption, is a presidency which can only bring calamity to this nation. But a presidency which sees America as a nation among nations, which understands that our real power comes not from military might, but from the morality of our position, from the ethic of our cause. That's the America that can lift up the world. That's the America that can help hold up the world. That's the America of our aspirations. And in leading the way towards that kind of an America, the America of our dreams, I intend to be the president who helps to take the steps forward that must be taken to bring about total nuclear disarmament. It is time. rejoins the world, we can create and connect with the essential optimism of America, with a hope for America. As we rejoin the world, we must show good faith with the rest of the world by signing the Biological Weapons Convention, the Chemical Weapons Convention, the Small Arms Treaty, the Landmine Treaty, and joining the International Criminal Court. It is time for America to As America comes to understand that the path towards holding up the world can only be achieved through sustainability, we must sign that Kyoto Climate Change Treaty and take steps. Take steps towards a sustainable energy policy. We must do that. It is time. As America rejoins the world community, it means that we do not have to keep building and building and building this incredible Pentagon budget, which now is crowding out our health interests, our housing interests, veterans benefits, education. The Pentagon budget now is at $400 billion. It's scheduled to go to $550 billion in the next 10 years. Now, there are candidates who say that they're for peace, but they won't challenge this Pentagon budget. I tell you, as the next President of the United States, I intend to make a major priority stopping this Pentagon from gobbling up the necessities in this country, and we need to reclaim a social and economic agenda for the American people, and we can get that money right out of the Pentagon budget. We spend there, the more likely we are to have war. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy for war, nothing more. And so we can have a 15% reduction, a $60 billion cut in Pentagon spending for all these fancy new weapon systems. Let me tell you where I intend to take that money. All across this country, I hear young families telling me that they can't afford daycare for their children, that the cost of daycare, in effect, is more than the cost of a college education. We're finding children, 3, 4, and 5, with families just want to be able to have a place for their children in the event the mother or father wants to work during the day. $60 billion would enable a universal pre-kindergarten program where every child, 3, 4, and 5, would have fully paid daycare at a public school for ages 3, 4, and 5 days a week, reading skills, educational skills, social skills, nutrition. This is an opportunity for us to show what our priorities are as a nation. Our country, when we go in and vote in the House of Representatives, we pass under the roof held up by these big pillars. And there is a statue, a sculpture, of a woman whose arm is extended, and her arm is protecting a child who is really blissfully sitting on top of a pile of books. This is a sculpture. It's right above the center of the House of Representatives. And this sculpture of the woman whose arm is protecting this child sitting on top of books is entitled Peace, Protecting Genius. Think about that for a moment. Peace, protecting genius. Not with nuclear arms, but with the arms of maternal love, with the arms which express nurturance and shielding the growth of the child genius representing also the light of knowledge. My presidency will create a profound shift in this country, will enable a true dedication to principles of peace. And as we do that, we can then free up those long-held aspirations that we've all had in this country for economic justice, for jobs, for health care, for education, for housing, to feed the hungry, to clothe the naked, to make sure that we have a nation that resonates with the dreams of our founders to form a more perfect union. My friends, this is our moment. This is our cause. Let's move forward with joy, with optimism, with hope, and with the courage that we know we have to reclaim this nation for the people of this country. Thank you very much.
if he would answer some questions. So if you have some questions you'd like to ask him, hold your
Yes.
hand up.
The fact that the press is covering Dean as the most part and a couple of others is the only one speaking out against what you get very little attention.
Look, I led the effort in the House of Representatives. I guess I can tell you this, right? And if it's not in the newspaper, it didn't happen. We all know that. But I will tell you this. I led the effort in the House. I did that a long time before anybody emerged on the trail. And I didn't just say I was against the war. I organized people in the House of Representatives, endlessly pushing and pushing and pushing until at last we had 126 Democrats who voted against the war in the House. By the way, that's 2/3 of the Democrats. Now, there are people who are saying, where are the Democrats? I need to tell you something. 2/3 of the Democrats in the House voted against the Iraq resolution. Now, I'm confident that as this campaign develops, that the record that I have and what I stand for as a progressive and as a liberal will be matched against anybody running in this race, and that no matter who it is, there won't be a single candidate who will be able to take the stands that I'm taking and challenge the status quo in the way that I'm doing it. One of the big issues in this race is the issue of military spending. I'm telling you that the Pentagon right now is on a trajectory to keep crowding out all of our domestic priorities. I'm the only candidate who's raising this issue. The only candidate raising the issue about it's time to stop building new nuclear weapons. Here we are telling North Korea, threatening North Korea, well, we say they're threatening us. We're threatening North Korea at a time that we're building new nuclear weapons. Right. We are creating a situation where we're putting weapons in space, where we're creating weapon systems anticipating World War III. I'm the only candidate bringing it up. So the campaign is still young. It's still young, and my sense is, based on what I'm finding out as I go around the country, we're starting to pick up momentum. In a period of just a few months, we raised over $1.5 million on a grassroots campaign. Started off with $180,000. Then next thing you know, we're at 1.8. We're approaching $2 million. We're raising the money grassroots. And I'm doing it through fundamental challenges. Just know something about this, and this is important for Lane County and Oregon. My candidacy represents fundamental change. This isn't about trimming around the edges. There's plenty of candidates who are going to do that. If people want to really change this system and challenge the system, I'm the one they're going to send out of the Oregon primaries with a big vote.
You're in Moore's country, but can you go through this campaign and identify yourself regularly for what you really are, a man with the independence of Wayne Morse, and make some headway with that identity?
Well, I think the spirit of Wayne Morse needs to be infused into this campaign. The spirit of someone who's ready to stand up and challenge the power of the government, who understood that the government was on the wrong track. And I have done that throughout the last year and a half without any thought until last November that I'd be a candidate for president. I mean, Wayne Morse and this area represents a hallowed tradition in our nation of fearlessness, of independence, the kind of courage that's needed to transform our politics. When our Star-Spangled Banner was written by Francis Scott Key, it's worth remembering that he wrote, is a kind of a challenge, does that Star-Spangled Banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? He connected democracy and courage. Wayne Morse's life was connecting democracy and courage. Our cause as a Democratic Party, if we are to win the White House, not just for the party but for the people, must be the cause of connecting democracy and courage. We must be brave to challenge this Pentagon. We must be brave to challenge the lies of this administration. We must be brave to challenge the domination of our political system by multinational corporations. We must be brave to challenge the domination of our health system by insurance companies and pharmaceutical companies. We must be brave to challenge the domination of our agricultural system by agribusiness. We must be brave to challenge a system which is failing the American people, and I'm the person ready to step forward to challenge that system.
one of our challenges here is education. It's not only K through 12, but we have young college Dems here who are absolutely so active. And, you know, when you're looking at the working people, you have a lot of union people here, very strong union Dems here. You have a lot of social Dems here, but you have a high education that we've got that is going down the tubes. Our kids are having to leave to find work, and once they graduate, if they can afford to graduate at all.
Let's talk about what a Kucinich presidency would mean to our young people who are on the edge of going to college or who are in college. I've thought about this as someone who myself worked for 2 years before I had a chance to start college. And I understand that today with cuts in state budgets, we're finding many young people having to postpone going to college. We're finding families having to postpone sending their children to public universities and colleges. As an ex-president of the United States, I intend to do the following. The Bush tax cut represents $1.55 trillion over 10 years in money that was redistributing wealth upwards, the tax cuts. I intend to cancel those tax cuts. And I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do with the money. There are 12 million young Americans right now going to public colleges and universities. The average cost for tuition, the average cost is $4,000 a year. Do the math. 4,000 times 12 million is $48 billion. For $48 billion a year, less than a third of what the tax cut is, we can have fully paid tuition, universal public college for all of our students. My administration is going to be about setting a moral standard for this country, and education must be at the top priority. So we're going to make it possible for our children to go to college. And this is part of the message, Pat, as we go across this country, as I go to college campuses in the fall, to let young people know that they have a stake in this election. They have a stake with education, with jobs, with the environment, with America's role in the world, with creating peace, and the spirit of this campaign. It's the spirit of this campaign,
Take just a couple
which
more.
is going to engage young people. Okay, yes.
Donald St. Clair from the Green Democratic Alliance. You are going to be appearing at a rally with Ralph Nader in Baltimore, is that true?
Well, there was a rally in Baltimore. I wasn't able to make it because we had votes, but I was invited to be there.
You're getting a lot of green support, which we're really excited about, and I'm just wondering how you've nurtured that, considering...
I'm a Green Democrat. I mean, you know, I mean, let me ask. We're all Democrats here. Isn't it okay for Democrats to be green? I mean,
The Republican extremists here in this state control just the House, but that's where the budget is done.
right.
They've embarrassed us already by making us have the worst school system and one of the most sickeningly damaged health systems in the country, and they are weeks away from taking the system the way it is now and cutting it back a third in each case. With a total budget of about $13 million, they're talking about going to $10 million, taking $2 million from education and $1 million from health services. It's killing Oregonians, and we're doing our best to stop it. Can you see that this is part of a national Republican direction?
There is no question about it. I mean, Congressman DeFazio and I were in the debate over a week ago about the so-called prescription drug benefit, where the Republicans were using the Americans' concerns about the high cost of prescription drug as a way to come up with a program where they're on the path to destroying Medicare. So there is no question that everything that we regard as the cause of nationhood, health care, they're trying to privatize. Social Security, they want to privatize. Let me tell you about the direction. And government jobs, they want to privatize. Let me tell you about the direction that I intend to take this country when it comes to health care. Working with congressmen like Congressman DeFazio, I intend to move this country in a direction which recognizes that the private sector, which has great favor with the Republican Party and which is trying to have a health care system which in effect owns us, that the private sector is set aside when it comes to health care, that we have in this country, we establish a universal health care program, Medicare for all, financed by a 7.7% payroll tax on top of all the other money that government spends. That amount of money would be sufficient to establish a universal health care program where there would be no premiums, no co-pays, no deductibles, where all medically necessary procedures would be covered, including preventive health care, complementary and alternative medicine, mental health care, dental care, vision care, and a prescription drug benefit. We can do that right now. We can control and contain costs by doing it too. The big question here, and the big question in this election, is going to be whether we can regain the power of the people from the corporations who have a control over our government through both political parties. My candidacy represents an opportunity for people to not only once again recapture a sense of hope and optimism in America, not only feel the power of our hearts to infuse our politics with a new spirit, but also the possibility to really regain power through allocating that power in the public sector and enabling our government to do the job that it was supposed to do, to provide and to promote the general welfare and to secure the blessings of liberty for ourselves and our posterity. This is the moment in time. This is the moment we've been called to, and this is the moment we're up to. So let us move forward with great courage and with great enthusiasm and with the unshakable conviction that we shall succeed. Thank you very much. Please go to our website at Kucinich.us. If you're able to help us and encourage and empower our efforts, you can join our campaign there. You can contribute to our campaign. You can help make this dream become a reality. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here this afternoon, well, on East Coast time. Thank you for being here, and welcome to this celebration of our democracy, a reclaiming of the power of each individual to create transformative change. Welcome to this opportunity where we can collectively have this dialogue about democracy so that we can attune ourselves to the dream of our founders to create a more perfect nation. This is the time for us to begin. And thank you so much for being here to be a part of it. Because I think the path towards the restoration of our democracy is not to become mired in the anger that all of us certainly feel. But we have to understand that anger ultimately cannot lead us to a path that will lift this nation up. That there's a point at which anger just dissipates and leads us into despair. But the path towards restoring our democracy is one where we connect with our highest aspirations, our hopes for this country, and reconnect with the essential optimism of the American character, which really is our heritage, and it's time that we redirected the energies of this nation. And my candidacy is about reconnecting with the higher aspirations of America. Oh, we recognize the challenge of the moment. Don't we? We recognize that America has been misled. But we also know that the conditions that have been created are also subject to change. and that we have within the power of our own hearts and through the power of our own spirits the ability to transform conditions of war to peace, of poverty to prosperity, of hopelessness to optimism, that it's us. That we are the ones that we've been waiting for. We're the ones we've been waiting for. It's not just about me, it's about all of us. And so my campaign is not about me, the people. It's about we, the people. This campaign is not simply a campaign. It's about a movement. It's about a movement to reclaim the banner of social and economic justice for the United States. It's about a movement to reclaim America's role in the world as a nation among nations, as a nation that works cooperatively with the world. It's so lonely.
Yeah.
Politics of preemption and unilateralism are so lonely. And we recognize that as we isolate from ourselves from the world, we lose the potential that we have to not only change the world, but we lose the potential that we have to help the society evolve to meet the needs of its people. And so, my campaign for President of the United States is about reclaiming the real power of America. And the first step towards doing that, I would suggest, is to begin to remember who we are. A few weeks ago, we celebrated the 227th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. Many of us had the opportunity to participate in different types of celebration. Because notwithstanding the grim nature of the hour, we still maintain the right and to preserve part of that America that we love so much that we refuse to concede to those who would sully our nation's heritage by claiming the cause of war. And that part of the nation we love so much, that part of the heritage which really is inside of us as citizens, is best described, I think, in the challenge of Francis Scott Key when he wrote the Star-Spangled Banner. Now, we hear that all the time. And there are times that we hear it when the nation's involved in an unjust war that we feel the words with a sense of grief. But when we look at the challenge of Francis Scott Key, when he asked those, "Say does that star-spangled banner yet wave, or the land of the free and the home of the brave," he made a connection that's so important to the American character. He made a connection between democracy and courage. And for a moment, I'd like you to think about this, because it is the path of courage that will enable us to break the spell of fear, which put this nation on a path towards war against Afghanistan, against Iraq, which led to the passage of the Patriot Act, and led to the huge buildup in the Pentagon budget. It is fear that has dropped across this country like a dark cloud, and fear that has caused us to be paralyzed in reclaiming the essence of America. Fear that has set neighbor against neighbor. Fear that has caused us to doubt that we could bring back a benign role for America in the world. Fear which makes us believe that we can never again have the country that we cherish. So my candidacy is about reclaiming our optimism and encouraging the American people as we encourage each other to remember who we are. Land of the free, home of the brave, democracy, courage. Remind people, help our brothers and sisters make the connection, because as we reclaim that essential courage of what it means to be in a democratic society, then we begin to break the spell of fear that is holding our nation captive right now, and that's the path to true victory as American citizens in 2004. we have to shake some of our trends and say, remember who you are. Remember who you are. This is a nation which claimed a role in the world through vision, through looking forward. We've made mistakes along the way, but never in American history have we faced the kind of challenge and crisis where we have today, where America has set itself apart from the world, where America has declared itself opposed to the world through a national security strategy of preemption and unilateralism and a nuclear posture review which reserves a first strike right. How then can America rejoin the world community? As President of the United States, I intend to lead this country in a direction to help America pick up the banner and work with the community of nations to achieve total nuclear disarmament. It is time. And that's just the beginning. Because as we rejoin the world community, that will necessarily mean a president who is willing to put his signature to the Biological Weapons Convention, the Chemical Weapons Convention, the Small Arms Treaty, the Landmine Treaty, and to join the International Criminal Court. It is time, America, equal justice before the law throughout the world. Those principles were important in our founding and very important at the founding of a world order dedicated to justice. And an American president, if he's dedicated to justice, must be willing to participate in the International Criminal Court. It's the only way that America can achieve credibility throughout the world. As the next president of the United States, I will work with you to achieve for America a new leadership towards sustainability and towards responsibility for the world's global climate, and we will begin by signing the Kyoto Climate Change Treaty. Because as citizens of a common planet, we have a right to air fit to breathe, water fit to drink, and all the citizens of the world depend on the United States being ready to step forward to achieve a sustainable global climate. It is time that we begin this work. We owe it to our generation, we owe it to future generations, and we owe it to the survival of the planet itself. In the world, we set aside the politics that have produced this massive buildup in Pentagon spending, because the fear which is engendered in this country, the fear which led us into Afghanistan and Iraq, which passed the Patriot Act, is the fear which produced massive increases in military spending, massive increases in a Pentagon budget, which on a trajectory would go to $550 billion within 10 years. I tell you that as we break the spell of fear in this country, we will stop this profligate spending in the Pentagon, and we will make sure that we will reclaim a domestic agenda for America and take the money, at least $60 billion out of that Pentagon budget, and put it back into education, back into health care, back into housing, back into feeding the hungry, back into reclaiming a moral standing in our own nation. It is time. Let no candidate come before you and tell you that he or she is for peace if they're not willing to challenge this Pentagon budget, because I tell you this Pentagon budget at $400 billion now simply becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy for war. Amen. The more money it gets, the more they have to have war to justify getting more money, to justify having more wars, to justify getting more money. I mean, that is the scam that is depriving our nation of the resources that we need to meet the needs of the American people. I've done the math. A 15% reduction. 15% reduction in Pentagon spending in the wake of, I might add, a 13% increase in Pentagon spending A 50% reduction would mean $60 billion. What could we do with $60 billion? Let me tell you, I've been around the country, I talked to young families who would like to have the option, if they so choose, of having a place to send their young children, 3, 4, 5 years old, for daycare, if they want to do that. Some families want to have their children at home. Some families can afford to have a parent stay at home. Others can't. And where families are out looking for work opportunities and economic opportunities, a major problem in family budgets is the cost of daycare. People are paying more for daycare than for a college education. We did the math and we found out that for $60 billion, we would make it possible for every 3, 4, and 5-year-old to go to a fully funded daycare program 5 days a week, learn reading skills, educational skills, social skills, receive a decent nutrition, and in that way, we begin to restate our priorities as a nation. Do you know that the Pentagon has over $1 trillion in accounts it cannot reconcile? Trillion. And it has tens of billions of dollars in inventory. It has a couple factories. Tens of billions, and then what is it? Thank you. And, thank you. And the Pentagon has stopped auditing its books. Oh, yes. Now, at least Enron had crooked auditors, right? The Pentagon doesn't even have crooked auditors. They have no auditors. And so we're faced with a condition where you have an out-of-control spending with no limitations whatsoever. This Pentagon budget now is preparing for doomsday. Weapons in space. The thinking behind it is America, under a program called Vision 2020, will dominate the world. I mean, what's that about? Using a platform in space to be able to fire anywhere in the world to achieve world dominance. This Pentagon budget includes money for building new nuclear weapons in anticipation of executing a first strike strategy. This Pentagon budget has money in it to build a national missile system. John, you do better than that. And now get this. And those of you who've been following know that they tricked up the test results to try to make it appear that this thing works in order to justify more spending. This administration demands that our school children must pass tests in order for districts to be funded. But missile systems don't need to pass tests. So we have a condition here where we have an administration which is preparing for the end of the world. Now I have an idea. Let's help their world end in 2004. Because America as a nation cannot walk in faith and fear at the same time, and an administration which is so overwrought with fear of the world, which would make a misstep, which would misinterpret intelligence data based on fear or based on caprice, is an administration which is really not up to handling the affairs of a great nation. And so, my friends, the challenge of the Pentagon budget is a challenge of whether or not we intend John. Did I tell you how much I like John Ashton? Hello, John. I love you, John. Take the covering off those statues, John. We have this condition where we're led to believe by fear that we have to keep building up this budget and we're shredding our domestic agenda. I'm actually the only candidate in this race who's ready to call to accounting not just the Pentagon budget, but the ethos behind it that drives us towards more and more war. America's place in the world can be recaptured as we work with the world community and also as we begin to address the basic needs of our people here at home. And that then becomes a nation which focuses on jobs, on health care, on education, on sustainability, creating new energy systems. Right now, this country is kind of in a perfect storm of sorts. Increased military spending, lies which brought us into war, and non-sustainable energy policies which became a cause of war. We are also in a perfect position because through realizing who we are as Americans, realizing that even at this dark hour, that we have the potential to reclaim our nation, that we have the potential to literally rise to the fullness of our strength as Americans. Some of you will remember the great political philosopher, Lewis Carroll, in that wonderful political tract, Alice in Wonderland, where there was a point at which little Alice was being confronted to be done in. And Lewis Carroll writes about this, characterizing her fear. But then Alice gained courage. And Carroll writes that Alice suddenly grew to her full size and sweeps her hands out at these advancing cars and says, "Who cares for you? You're nothing but a pack of cards."
Yeah.
Alice understood what happens when we reclaim the power of our humanity. And in this moment, my fellow Americans, as we reclaim the power of our humanity, so we reclaim our nation. As we reclaim our courage, so we reclaim our democracy. As we reclaim our strength to participate in the political process, so we reclaim the political process for ourselves and for future generations. Let's move forward in 2004 to create the America of our dreams, to create the America that opens up the hearts of the world, to create our own hearts with light and the world with greater possibilities. Thank you very much. Thank you. Unfortunately, the federal government chose to prosecute a doctor who was taking care of his patients. And I, at that time, thought it was important to speak out very strongly. As President of the United States, I'll do everything I can and sign an executive order that would make it possible for doctors to have medical marijuana to their patients. This isn't even a close question. I mean, it's like, get over it.
This may be a politically incorrect question.
Okay, next question. Okay.
Several friends have asked me, well, where does he come from? What's his ethnicity and what is his religion?
Who are you, dude? I come from another planet. Well, actually, the name Kucinich.
Yeah.
My grandfather, John, over there they call it Kucinich, was from a place in eastern Slavonia known as Batnoga, now in what's known as Croatia. And he left there at a very, very young age to take a boat through Rijeka and sail to America. When he landed at Ellis Island and gave his name, they added the H to his name.
Okay.
So anytime someone tells me to get the H out of there, I always remember and so his wife's family came from what's now known as Slovakia, and they were married in Mount Pleasant, Pennsylvania, and they had about 13 children, of which my father, Frank, was one. My mother, whose name was Norris, Virginia Norris, her family came, their ancestry was from Ireland, and many from County Mayo. And so, coming from a family with a background from Croatia and Ireland, now you understand what my problem is. My mother was a Spitfire. My dad was kind of a laid-back, low-key guy. And life at home is always interesting. and I'll tell you, it's important. It is important. I think there is some importance to remembering where we came from, because we connect with, in that way, we connect with the story of everyone, and we can identify with everyone's journey. I remember, I think it was a song by Simon and Garfunkel. Begins, "Let us be lovers, we'll marry our fortunes together. All come to look for America." This experience of where we come from is very powerful. And it's instructive at this moment when we have leaders who are afraid of the rest of the world, because we come from the rest of the world. Our first motto is who we are. We're afraid of ourselves. We met the enemy, as Pogo said, and he is us. And so the idea of who we are as Americans is very important right now. The diversity of this country, the first motto, "In pluribus unum," out of many, we are one. Remember who we are, America. Remember who we are. A country which embraces diversity, a country which necessarily survives through tolerance, a country where people from dozens of nations sail through Ellis Island with a promise in a poem by Emma Lazarus. And some of you know that. It's worth thinking about, because it talks about the character of America. At the base of the Statue of Liberty is written, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses, yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the tempest tossed, to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door." That's a promise to people all over the world of an America which is benign, compassionate, of felicity. And I want to see that role for America reclaimed in this world. It's time to remember who we are. And religion. Oh, yes. My own religious training is Roman Catholicism.
We knew it.
But my religious view, my philosophy, is really based on an holistic view of the world. I see the world as interconnected and interdependent. And so through my own religious experience, I connect with the universality of all, and see religion as just one path out of and to a universal presence. And so I see all of us as one. And religion often becomes a thing that separates people. It becomes a vehicle by which people become alienated from one another. But in a society where we celebrate freedom of religion, a First Amendment right, we can then take heart from appreciating everyone's religion and appreciating those who don't believe. And so my administration will rely on a spiritual philosophy which embraces the power of all, the sanctity of all, and the transformative capacities of all. Wow. We have the potential to bring spiritual principles into this material world, and therefore help to elevate the world and bring peace and justice and equality and love. And I think that's, okay, right? Yeah.
What do we do about restoring confidence for the public in the United Nations?
The question relates to what can we do about restoring confidence in the United Nations. Well, first, pay our dues. Just last week, before the House of Representatives, a couple of representatives, I don't know why, but they added amendments to try to cut funding to the UN. And there are people who have a view of the world as America is being insulated and isolated from the world. My belief is that the advancing tide in this world is towards human unity. We feel it. We all feel it. We know that. When I talk about viewing a world holistically as being interconnected and interdependent, I mean, that's not a revelation. We're seeing technical systems that already reflect that. We're seeing systems of communication, of transportation, systems of trade. This human intercourse that goes on is what connects us and has connected us, and with the web increasingly connects us. So any way that tries to go against that is really resisting an advancing tide. And so what I hope to do as the next president is to quicken this possibility. And the one institution which exists worldwide in which to make that happen is the United Nations. How much better it would have been for the United States to have relied on UN weapons inspectors who could have told us what everyone knows now, and that is the world runs its mass destruction. As the next president, I will see that the UN is fully funded and that the United States fully participates with the world community through the United Nations. Next question, right behind.
With hindsight, if you had been in the White House in 2001, how would you have responded to September 11th?
Well, let's talk about what could have happened. Because I think the question is, based on hindsight, how would you have responded? One of the things I think we lost in this country after 9/11, aside from this enormous tragedy, which to this day still is a searing memory, one of the things we lost was the opportunity to connect with the rest of the world, which opened up their heart to America. I mean, some of you, and I certainly was getting calls from all over the world. People saying, "Oh, I'm so sorry this happened," and people were grieving with us. And that America that could have connected with the rest of the world is an America that then could have set itself on a path towards resolving the security challenges which we face through international cooperation, police work, detective work, but not arms. We could have done that. But, let's talk some more about what we could have done, because it lends a reflection on where we might be able to go. Another thing I think would have been useful for the American people. Let's face it, the country suffered great grief. We all felt it. When any of us experienced loss of that sort, we always need people to talk to. We really needed a national discussion about how we feel, about what it meant. We lost that opportunity. And perhaps after this election, we can go back into having a discussion about it. And we need to do it with compassion for ourselves, not judging our country. We can love our country and at the same time have a pretty clear view of what America could have, should have, would have. And so I think it's important for America to have a period of truth and reconciliation about 9/11. I think it's important because something else happened after 9/11. I want to share this with you because it's so sad. The day after 9/11, there was a meeting in the National Security Council at which Secretary Rumsfeld said, and this is recorded in a book called Bush at War by Bob Woodward. He said that the administration could use the opportunity to go after Iraq. Now, to me, it's important to remember. This then shows you why this administration did not want a 9/11 inquiry to be pursued in a public way, because that then would have proved definitively there was no connection between Iraq and 9/11. So, lacking that, they were able to try to build a case based on false information that Iraq had something to do with 9/11. So not only did we lose the opportunity to be able to have a real discussion about what actually did happen and why, but we lost the opportunity to try to heal our grief. And then there was another grief that came through, and I have to share this with you as something that I experienced. As we were, after the passage of the Patriot Act and looking at what had happened in this country as we were just going into an area that I didn't even recognize. I mean, I'm sure many of you had this same feeling, like, is America? Where are they taking this country? And I was feeling a real sense of anger at first. I mean, just anger. What are you doing to my country? But then when I finally, there was a moment when I was just listening to the music, and finally the anger lifted, and I realized something was under that, and it was grief. That I really felt, I was in grief. for what the direction the effort is going. This country needs some healing about 9/11, about the policies in Iraq, about the direction this country's been taken with the Patriot Act, about the change in our national priorities. It will need some healing. And I think that one of the things that I can do as President of the United States is to help our nation go towards that path with compassion for all Americans, whatever their political views, without judging our nation, whatever mistakes have been made, but realizing that as we explore this very deep territory of emotion, that we can then be lifted, have this lifted from us, lifted from our hearts, and enable us to make our hearts light again, and to make light our presence in the world. Thank you.